Let's bring in the former Liberal MP and diplomat Dave Sharma. Dave, good morning. Good to see you. So what's your main takeout been from Xi Jinping's speech?
I don't think there are any surprises particularly, Peter. I mean, I think we've known going into this 20th Party Congress that Xi was likely to be reappointed as General Secretary of the Communist Party and then hence made President and Chair of the Armed Forces Committee. This is the three big titles he holds. Nothing suggests that that plan is coming unstuck. His language about, external threats, stormy seas, approach towards Taiwan is not that different to the quite hawkish tone that he's struck over the past half decade here. I think what's interesting is the challenges that China faces now are quite significant. They've got economic growth that's likely to be under 3% this year, which is very unusual and very low for them. And their continued zero COVID policy is causing a lot of, human frustration on the ground and strangling their economy somewhat as well. And I think there is a fair bit of internal disquiet about that, but that's unlikely to show itself at this People's Congress.
Okay, well, they are actually the 2 points that I wanted to raise with you. Yeah, the big problems with the economy and the bizarre chase for COVID zero. So you don't think he'll face any internal trouble, not at least for the next term?
Look, I think he's successfully concentrated power and purged his rivals such that, people don't even expect the eventual successor to him, which is probably a decade away, to be appointed to the Politburo Standing Committee. This is the main leadership committee in China during this thing. So we don't even know who Xi's successor is. But these things there is definitely internal disquiet about some of these, the zero COVID policy and the slow economic growth and the direction more broadly that Xi is taking the country into a more combative and more adversarial relationship with the United States. But it's look, in a system as centralised as China with, control over the media, control over people's opinions, it can be hard to see that stuff bubble through.
Well, any disquiet or any move against him, it just gets rubbed out and people, get sent off to prison or worse, don't they?
They do. And look, this is the big, why China had term limits and why Deng Xiaoping introduced them was to avoid the concentration of power into one person's hands only, with all the risks that brings. That we saw that in the Mao era with the Cultural Revolution and the Red Guards terrorising their fellow citizens. And Deng put in a whole lot of reforms, including term limits, to try and make sure that power was shared collectively and that there were at least some checks and balances, even within a one-party state. And what Xi has done is basically abolished those progressively during his 10 years so far at the helm.
Yeah, well, Putin did that last time, didn't he? Russians were only supposed to have 2 consecutive terms, and he changed it, so it's just straight out of the dictator's playbook.
It is, but it creates this, this kind of single point of failure symptom where no one knows what happens after the leader. The leader gets increasingly paranoid about threats to his rule, and the country tends to sort of veer off the rails into a more authoritarian, hardline approach where the interests of the state become indistinguishable from the interests of the leader. And that's a dangerous situation for any country. We've got that in Russia now with Putin, and we're increasingly getting it in China now with Xi. If there's no process for an orderly succession or an orderly transfer of power, it creates huge risks within any political system.
OK, well, we'll stay in Russia, or more pointedly Ukraine, because there's been a push for Australia to send military personnel to Ukraine to train its soldiers outside the country. This all unfolded after your opinion last piece in The Australian last week, Dave. Government is thinking about it and other options. I put that to them, but how much of a priority should it be?
Well, I think our support to Ukraine should be a huge priority. I know it's a long way from Australia, but basically the outcome of that war will determine the shape of the world for the next few decades. If Russia is seen to be able to take territory by force and keep it successfully, then that will be carte blanche to any number of other countries, not least of which China in our own region. So it's incredibly important that this aggression is repelled. And, no one's offering to send troops to Ukraine. They're doing all the fighting and they're dying themselves. I think the least we can do is provide them all the support they need for their mass mobilisation. And, we've done well. We've provided Humvees, Bushmasters, we've provided other armoured vehicles. But Russia's putting in more manpower into the conflict. We're seeing this with their mobilisation and conscription orders. Ukraine is already maxed out. They've got every eligible person of fighting age. It's certainly every male already on the front lines or serving. What we need to make sure is that those people are as well trained and well equipped as possible, and that's why I think we should be part of a training mission. I mean, New Zealand is sending 150 people to contribute to this training mission. The EU has just announced a training mission. The UK has already trained several thousand Ukrainian armed forces personnel. I think we need to be playing our part in Australia if we believe, as we always say we do, in the rules-based global order and preserving it.
Good points. Dave Sharma, as always, good to chat. We'll talk to you again soon.